Hi, everyone. Welcome to Series 2 of the We Inspire podcast. We're so excited to be back. Series 1 was a huge success, speaking to some of the most incredibly talented females within the world of digital, e-commerce and marketing. So we're really glad to be back. This podcast is all about celebrating kind of inspirational women within the world of digital e-commerce. This time around, we are going to play it a little bit different and include other parts of each business, because digital now touch most areas of any brand now. So we want to be celebrating so many kind of different verticals within the digital space. This week, and our first guest is someone whose profile is one of the strongest I've ever seen. They've got a background within media production, travel, luxury fashion, and they're currently the global CDO of arguably one of the biggest FMCG brands on the planet. So welcome, Claire Hennah.
Thank you very much, Terry, and thanks to everyone for listening in. Really delighted to be with you today.
How are you?
I'm really well, thank you. Very well. And I love the premise of this podcast and what you're doing to try and support females in one of the most exciting industries. So really, really happy to be here.
No, thank you. I mean, I'm going to be honest, I'm a little bit nervous this month because we haven't done one of these for a little while. So I'm going to have to break myself in a little bit. But yeah, as I said, you've got an incredible profile. I've spoken to numerous people since obviously we've agreed this. I kind of took advantage a little bit because we got the podcast and we got your guest speaking somewhere else. So I'm not going to ask for anything more, I promise. But everyone I have spoken to, their feedback has been so positive. So it was kind of a no-brainer, and it's huge for us to have you on. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Before we do anything, I think it would be really good to give the listeners a bit more of an overview of you and your career so far.
Yeah, sure. So look, so I'm Claire, and let me start with the kind of background in the beginning. So I started my career in an online startup called handbag.com. Doesn't exist anymore, actually, which pains me. But it was really pioneering at the time. It was an online women's magazine. And at that time, there was no online women's magazine. And I'm going to sound really old. There wasn't Facebook. It had a community of women coming and talking to one another, asking for their each other for advice. But essentially it was a magazine, so you had fashion, beauty, relationship advice. And I was fresh out of university, this wonderful kind of startup culture. I had really good backers, actually, Boots and the Daily Telegraph. And I was with that business for about 6 years. And the last people that took that business over were Hearst Publishing. And for anyone that doesn't know Hearst, they own brands like Harper's Bazaar, Cosmopolitan, Men's Health. So then I oversaw marketing for all of those brands on the online side. So I had that opportunity to really target and be part of a company that pretty much reached 5 million women in the UK every single month. So it's a really exciting business. But at that time, after about 6 years, publishing was, a bit of a tough business to be in. So I made a bit of a change, went consulting, went to a couple of different startups. Then I joined Virgin Atlantic. I ran a startup within Virgin Atlantic. So that's quite different, being a startup within the kind of corporate company. And having never worked in travel before, it was amazing. And I don't know if you've flown Virgin Atlantic before, Terry, but they're a special, special brand where consumer experience is at the heart of the whole company. And I spent a lot of time in the early stages just really getting to know crew, pilots, because you get under the skin of the business, right? But yeah, anyway, I'll talk a little bit later, maybe on Virgin Atlantic. And then I joined Selfridges a couple of years after that. And I think probably most people know Selfridges, luxury retailer, has 4 stores in the UK. I really went in to drive the online growth of the business. I was there nearly 6 years. And then I joined Unilever. And when originally I joined Unilever, I was overseeing the beauty and personal care online part of the business. I since then got promoted and then did everything across Unilever, all brands and all categories. And then late last year, I also took on what we call an integrated role, right? So I've got still remain overseeing digital commerce at Unilever, but I also now head up the commercial teams in beauty and wellbeing. So backgrounds, a mix of marketing, commercial, digital, corporate, startups, and each one of them has really made me the person I am today. And then personally, I'm married, got a little boy who's 7, so that's a bit about me. I hope that helps.
It really does, and we are going to divulge into a lot more in a minute. But didn't do last time. I feel like we learned a lot on our first podcast and started jumping straight into loads of questions. So what we want to do is have a little bit more fun with this podcast round. So we're going to throw in a quick fire round. So I've got 7 questions.
Right.
And we cannot think. The first thing that comes out, and I don't care how outrageous it is.
Okay.
Right.
This could get me into trouble, Derry.
This is fine. We can bleep it out. We're really good. We'll manage it. We'll manage it. Beach holiday or city break?
Beach.
What would be your signature dish?
Well, that's debatable, signature dish, but I'm going to say a lasagna.
I love lasagna. I would have gone with that, actually, to be fair. It's the only thing I can't get wrong.
Well, you try not to, right? But I can say I have got it wrong in the past.
It's basically a spaghetti bolognese pie, really, isn't it?
Exactly.
You can't really get it wrong.
You can't get it wrong, but I have. I can say I have.
There are some stories around ours as well. Would you rather fly or have super strength?
Fly, because I'm a nervous flyer, and maybe I'll get a touch on this a little bit actually if we get to it. But I would fly because I'd have the ability to do it myself and be in control. So I think I'm going to say fly.
I think there's going to be more to kind of answer on that there, isn't there? The fact that you said that you can control it.
Yeah.
But there we go. I like this one because this really tests character. What's your go-to karaoke song?
Well, this is a bit of a ballsy one, actually. I'm going to say Adele, Make You Feel My Love. And no one really wants to take on Adele, right?
Oh, bold.
It is bold.
It's bold because you normally hear that in the pub and it's going to go one or two ways. They're either going to be absolutely brilliant or shocking. And it's so I'm going to go really good just for the sake of this.
Yeah, again, I haven't got anyone to validate this.
I love how you've locked yourself in a room to answer these questions. What's been the best birthday present you've ever received from anyone?
Well, actually, probably a little bit linked to your earlier question. My husband bought me a Virgin Atlantic fear of flying experience. I developed a fear of flying really late on in my life, which was really frustrating for me because I really, really love traveling. And I'd heard about this kind of Virgin fear of flying experience. And so he bought it for me as a birthday present, and it changed my life and got me back in love for flying again. Yes, it does. So
that's something to recommend to the listeners if they've got a fear of flying.
I would, the best £250 he could have spent because it was life-changing and I love flying again.
I really will charge Virgin commission for this, if I'm honest. What are you most looking forward to this year?
So personally, getting my house back because we've been renovating it since June last year. Professionally, look, I think it's about setting my teams up for success, right? Yeah. In our new business group, Beauty and Wellbeing, it's an incredibly exciting sector, full of so much opportunity, but we're newly formed and they're brilliant. So I want them to be set up for success. And in digital commerce, we're at this critical stage of integration. It's not a small part of the business anymore. So I really think on leading, pushing for change, and really integrating decom as part of the everyday is really part of what we're doing. So I'm looking forward to that kind of next leap of the kind of integration journey.
Okay. Would you rather find your dream job or win the lottery?
This is a hard one because depending what way you answer this, you always, you could be foolish or sounding like you're just really money orientated. But I'm going to say lottery because it then can help me get to my stepping stone of my dream job. Have I cheated a little bit?
I think that's a cop-out, to be honest. I really believe that is a cop-out. Weirdly, I would go find my dream job.
Because
money doesn't always give you happiness.
You're going to be rich in life if you've got your dream job, right?
Yeah, if you've got your dream job, I think you're happy. Like, you spend so much time at work. And I think with the lottery, you see a lot of people that use it not for good, really.
The thing is that I would use it for good.
Yes, I don't
that's
doubt.
the thing.
I still think you copped out. I still think you copped out.
All right,
okay. You copped out. Look, so that was the quick fire questions.
Great, love that.
We'll jump into a little bit more about your career and stuff, but taking it all the way back, we've got 13-year-old Claire. What was the dream job for you then at that point? What did you really want to do?
So from a really young age, I wanted to do law.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, so couldn't be any more different than what I do now. I remember my mum. So again, I'm going to be showing my age now, Terry. She used to watch this program called LA Law. I think it's like a proper 80s program.
Is it on UK Gold?
Oh, I mean, it probably is. I had no idea, actually. And I grew to love it. But where it came from, I wanted to help people.
Yeah.
And I saw professionally lawyers. Now everyone's got a distinct view, I think, on this particular sector of and whether they do help. But that's what I really wanted to do. And I wanted to do that right up until 17. And then I was at college, went to this careers fair, and then suddenly I got open to the world of media, marketing, and I changed it all and decided to go to Loughborough and study media so I could carve out a career in marketing and advertising. So I left law behind. I finished my degree and then really contemplated doing a law conversion degree.
Okay.
But I just thought, I can't do any more studying. I'm itching to get out to work, and then the rest is history.
Well, it's been the industry's gain. Flattery through this is going to get me through. So look, obviously, how did you get into marketing? What was it for you that stood out? Yeah,
look, I think my younger self, when I was first getting, out into the industry, I really wanted to get into advertising. So I was really focused on the kind of ad agency side. And then when I came out, I was talking to recruitment, teams and people, and I got approached about this job at handbag.com, which was essentially looking after the ad production on the website. And I thought, well, the internet was at the really early stages. It's in a sweet spot because I'm a female, and, relationships, fashion, beauty, sounds like a great place.
Yeah.
And I went there, and it wasn't the marketing job, but it was working alongside the commercial team, managing the advertising. It was a little bit techie, and I'm a little bit of a geek. And the people, and like my boss at the time, I loved him, and I loved the people and the spirit of the culture. So that's what started. Early entry into the career. And then after about 18 months, the business started to expand. So we launched a teenage title called GetLippy.com. Doesn't exist anymore. And then I had the opportunity to join the marketing team. And as a 23-year-old female launching a kind of female teen title, and like the editor was about my age, like the whole team was super young, female. And I just got the opportunity to do complete 360 marketing, from radio to event marketing. Close Show Live at that time was one of the places where I did a couple of events. That doesn't exist anymore because, again, this is making me sound really old. But it just... it created my hunger and thirst in marketing. And I'm always ever so thankful for the opportunity that early stage gave me. But yeah, so that's where it started.
Love that. Love the name though, Get Lippy. I think that would be one of the, like, today's world, that would do really well.
I know, right? Yeah. I mean, it was all kind of built on attitude, being sharp, really empowering females. And so, yeah, it is. And actually, if you type in Get Lippy, it's often now used as a bit of a branding campaign for, as you would think, targeting females. But yeah, it was a special time.
Yeah, I wouldn't just say teens. I've got a 5-year-old daughter, and I think she's going on 13. She's now started to learn how to say no, and I'm not doing that, Dad.
That's dangerous.
So, honestly, it's scaring the life out of me. So I'm not going to get into that because this could be a whole new podcast. Look, you've worked with amazing businesses within a range of sectors. So you obviously, like you mentioned, you've got Virgin, Selfridges, Unilever. On paper, there's some of the biggest. I sound like I was on Love Island then. On paper, they're some of the biggest in the industry, in any industry, regardless of just their own verticals. Would you say the approach to each role is the same, or do you have to kind of accommodate it, like each one on its own?
Look, I think I have been really fortunate to work for some amazing brands. Some exist and some don't exist anymore, right? And when I look back, so when I was at handbag.com, then it became Hearst. I was there nearly 6 years. And actually, I took a real risk. I took voluntary redundancy. And after 6 years in that particular field, it was a risk because it was the onset of a global recession as well. But I thought, if I cannot at 26 make a risk and back myself, then actually I'm going to stay working in a publishing industry. And I knew at the time that was facing incredible amounts of digital disruption and difficulties. So with that, I was really fortunate. Again, I was leaving the business. I didn't have a job to go to, which was a bit nerve-wracking. Bold. And I saw an old colleague, and he kind of said to me, "What are you up to?" And I was like, "Well, actually, I'm looking for a job." And he said, "Well, you come consulting for the company I'm working with, which is another startup." And I guess the approach that I took to that role was, and when you're in a startup business, and Terry, you have your own business, you turn your hand to many different things, right? 1 minute I was doing HR, the next minute I was doing sales, the next minute I was doing marketing. When there's 20 people in your company, you take real ownership. And yes, you've got your skills, and I've got mine, but you're there to make the business work, right? Yeah. And so I think in that period I was ever so thankful that, my old colleague had kind of said, "Look, come and work with us." And that got me into my first foray of consulting. And I loved it because it was really refreshing, because actually, even though I'd been a marketeer, just because you're in a particular field doesn't mean that you haven't got appreciation of HR, of management. Yeah. So actually, it would then gave me this opportunity to use other skills that I'd developed. And then I was approached by Virgin to lead a kind of marketing and content role at a startup. And I went in and I didn't do any of those two roles because the business case is broken. I worked on separating a joint venture, building a new business case. It was so different than what I'd even anticipated, as often jobs are when you kind of, so I think you just have to, I think with all these opportunities, you have to go in, you look, that no company is perfect, no role is perfect. It's about how your attitude is and when you approach it. So like when I joined Selfridges, I was very aware that the e-commerce website didn't meet the expectations of the company or the customer, right? It was going to be hard. Also, all the sales associate, all the store teams really hated digital. It was breaking their 100-year-old business. It was, there was lots of different things that were wrong. Someone would buy something online, bring it to, and you'd have a return in store, and it would wipe out the sales team's commission. So there was lots of that kind of processes, hard yards of change that you need to drive in a company. So yes, my remit was help us grow, help us retain, help us take this business to the next level, but help us win hearts and minds. drive the change. And so I think, and it's the same at Unilever, right? You know, when I joined, online was 5% of the business. It's now 15% of the business, right? And over 100 years old, this business, massive, truly multinational, so much bigger than anywhere I've worked before in my lifetime so far. And all these challenges, you kind of dig into all the other experiences that you've had, and then you use the best of your skills to adapt to the situation. And I think for Unilever, I was coming into a company where everyone had grown up in Unilever, right? You know, it's not many people that come in externally. It's different now, but, you know, nearly 6 years ago, as a mid-level recruit, there was not many external people. So I had to build my own network, a highly networked company. But I just used, hopefully, my collaboration skills and the fact that I had this wonderful experience in these other companies to my advantage of building my network up within Unilever, and then, you know, get a few things on the ladder where you start delivering. So I think every job that you've got, you always need to stay true to you as an individual, but use the skills that you've learned along the way to adapt to what you're facing into.
Wow. That was a bigger answer than I was expecting. It's incredible. So, as I said, you kind of worked with the big brands. You've done a lot of setups as well, and team builds as well. So, like, I know when we're talking, and even when we market this, they're seeing what these brands are now. Yep. Like these sophisticated setups. You've gone in and had to put in the infrastructure to allow it to be successful. But what comes into that is a lot of team builds as well.
Yep.
One of the things that you're praised for, so I've really done my research on you, by the way. I've spoken to so many people, it's ridiculous. One of the things that you're praised for is your coaching and line management. One actually described you as arguably the most selfless manager they've ever had. One-to-ones are often personable, and your approach to leadership is second to none. I nearly cried then, I'm going to be honest. I was tearing up a little bit there. I wasn't really, guys. There was like a little bit of an awkward silence, and it was like, oh, that was nice.
I was like, I feel like I'm in the Oscars, but yeah, thank you.
You can thank everyone in a minute. No, I spoke to so many people. And that was the thing that come back most. What is coaching for you? How have you been able, because this is all about inspiring the future world of e-commerce, regardless of gender. Like, I've spoken to male and female. They've all said the same thing. But not everyone's got access to these kind of managers.
Yep.
What is coaching for you? How do you approach it?
Well, firstly, Terry, thank you to the lovely people that you spoke to. I'll pay them later. I'm not sure who they are, but they can reach out to me. Look, I think it's important to invest your energy in developing team members to be the best that they can be, and to show how they can be part of delivering the vision that either you or your company is creating. I mean, I get energy from people, and empowering them to thrive is part of my role. And so when I look at the individuals I've worked with and the teams that I've managed, I'm just in awe of where they've taken their professional development. And to be honest, if I've played one tiny part on that journey, it brings me a lot of personal satisfaction. So there's a lot about it's my personality. Look, managing people is hard, Terry, right? But you have a role in bringing the best version out of people. And if you're not in the game of doing that, then you frankly shouldn't be a leader. And so I personally feel the style that of that coaching style leads to greater retention and job satisfaction. You need to innately trust your team. At Unilever, I've got a team all over the world. And if I was micromanaging them, I mean, frankly, I wouldn't get any work done myself. But you need to empower them. You need to trust them to deliver. And I think if I look at even some of my previous roles where I've been managing people, I now know, being at Unilever, they've been able to unlock the extra 10% in me to be a better person and a better manager. Because I've got this hugely diverse team, every religion, culture and nationality you can probably think of. And I've worked with people with disabilities in my team. And frankly, it just inspires you to be better and really drive at its core an ED&I agenda, because I really want to make it. And I've learned as I've grown, how can you as a leader, because you're in a very privileged position, make it your mission that every voice counts. And sometimes the quietest voices in the room can be the most powerful. And I think you've got a responsibility to lead the role modeling and leading for change, because representation matters. So when you're talking about the podcast that you're creating, Terry, and why is it important that you show female leadership in this very exciting industry, is because if you don't see a mirror of yourself in the teams around you and the leadership teams, you don't really live up to making dreams a reality. And so it's a big responsibility, but it's part of what is my passion. So it's either in you or it's not. I think there's a bit of a nature nurture, and there's obviously techniques and courses you can go on along the way, but I think it really is down to individuals.
This doesn't inspire the listeners. I am absolutely pumped for the rest of the day, by the way. So it is literally, it literally pours out of you, because I'm feeling it, and I'm on a Teams call with you right now. It's crazy, your ability to do that. I've never felt that, by the way. That's mental. That's mad. Made me feel a bit weird. I've got everything prepped and I'm like, right, I'm ready to go now. Got to try and get focused again. Right. So look, you've mentioned it there. You're so driven. It's absolutely ridiculous but that's been from an early age.
Yeah.
In your own words, meet tight deadlines under pressure with enthusiasm, energy, and a good sense of humour. I love that. Something we can all aspire to be honest. I think there's a lot of being said in the world about working to pressure and deadlines. I think if you removed pressure, I don't think people would be half as successful. And I'm massive on that. But it's how you approach it. And so I'm a massive believer in what you've stated there. But how do you do it?
I mean, gosh, I love working, and loving what you do is really important, right? I think we spend a lot of hours working, so you have to do it with your best energy. And maybe the years of being operator roles, right? You have a real tendency for action and bias. So holding yourself to be accountable is to delivery. It's just being part of me, right? And then, but I, and honestly, some of my team members, you want to see Claire when she's not happy about things being delivered. So trust me, they know. So.
You can't say that. Is there like a look that you've got? Is there like a look?
Oh, it could be the looker. It could be, that disappointed mum look, You don't have any need to raise your voice. You just kind of can give.
So my wife's got this one look, and I'm just like, right, she's disappointed in me.
It's a disappointed look, but look, no, I think, in all seriousness, I think, you've got, and I go back to the leadership bit, right? Even if you're having, quite frankly, not the greatest of days, sometimes you've got to put in the energy cell and really bring out your positive vibe, because you've got a role to inspire people. And so, but hey, look, it's also, you have to be authentic. I think I'm also very clear to my teams when maybe things haven't gone to plan. Okay. So look, I think I always go in with positive attitude. I don't need someone giving me a prod to get out of bed in the morning. I'm a pretty self-motivated person. That doesn't mean every person's like that. So again, when talking about, your ED&I piece, and, when we're talking about diversity, not everybody's got the same reserve cells. And it's taken me a while with learning and experience to understand enough around my high energy might create low energy for somebody else. So look, I think you've got to know, and you've got to have that perception of people. But, you know, I'm very committed, very delivery focused, and it's just, again, a bit of my personality, Terry.
I think it's great personality, to be honest. I'm feeling it. So as I said, I'm still pumped from the last answer. So look, as we've spoken about at the beginning, and the seriousness around this, you and I spoke before we got onto this about why we set this podcast up, was celebrating industry leaders, industry female leaders, because there's not many platforms to do that within our industry. But the second part of it is to inspire the future generation of women as well, that there are doors open now because of people like yourself that have kicked through them. What does inspiring women mean to you?
Look, it's funny, actually. I had an internal panel this week within our commercial function across certain levels in the business. We don't have a strong representation of female leadership at probably my level, right? And that gender parity is something that we're striving for, but we need to get to 50-50 female to male representation within the commercial function. And we're about 42% female to male ratio. And I talked about it, and it's like what I said to you, representation matters. So I think it has to start with senior leadership, Terry. I think you need strong leaders who believe in not just making quotas, but strongly believe in female leadership, creating the right representation and opportunity in their teams. And I've worked with some amazing male leaders. On the panel I was speaking to earlier in the week, I worked with two incredible male leaders who are changing policies. And these are also men that are in countries, not like the UK, where you don't have the right conditions for women. You know, even having gender specific bathrooms was not something that Pakistan had. So actually, if you had people going out on sales calls, they were having to go to a male bathroom, and that wasn't necessarily safe for them. Or how do you ensure that you've got the right policies in place that really helps women and makes women thrive? Okay, so there's a policy, there's the culture, there's actually then, yes, quotas and targets do matter. And so you have to be really clear, and you have to be clear where you've got work to do. Because also, if you're not honest, you don't show that you're needing to drive the change. So I think it is super important. I probably then, the role that I've now taken on in Unilever, probably didn't even realize how important it was for other females to see me get the position that I did. Because when I got my position, I had so many emails from other female leaders saying how important it was for me to take this role in the commercial side of the business, because there's a lack of representation. So I've got a big job to do, because I've got to then I've got to do service to all these amazing women in the company that I work for, right? And there are some kick-ass females. So I'm only trying to role model and give them the opportunity, right? Because the business will continue long before, long after, I'm there. But I've got a voice, right? And I think that's the other thing that I kind of spoke to you this week is use your voice and use it for good. And so, yeah, I hope that's answered the question, but it's an incredibly important piece. But I think it's also about really amazing males who lead the change as well.
Amazing. You kind of touched upon there. There's a couple of really inspirational kind of people on the board at Unilever. But like we keep referring back, you've worked with amazing people. I've obviously heard some amazing things about you from the industry. Who inspires you most?
Well, my mum. It feels like a cliche to say, but my mum, she gave up everything, I think, to give me the opportunities that I have today. So she's been a really, really pivotal person. And I think actually I work as hard as I do because I think of the sacrifices that she made. So my mum, clearly my son and my husband, because I wouldn't be able to do the job that I do without certainly them, and my mother-in-law and my mum, who are and my dad and my stepdad. Actually, they without that family unit, I'm very lucky, but I wouldn't be able to do the job that I do without that family network. And so, look, there's a family dynamic. And then clearly I've met some amazing females on my journey. So Nancy Cruikshank, Alison Stenner, Emma Orr when I was at handbag.com. Then I've had amazing kind of male leaders, Keith Higgins at Unilever, David P. Jones when I was at Handbag. And then I've, had the opportunity to see someone like Anne Pitcher at Selfridges, who's just phenomenal. So I think all of these leaders also shape you into partially who you want to be and who you don't want to be. Because, so those would be some of the people I would call out. And gosh, I'm going to be, some would be like, I feel like the Oscar moment where you forget somebody, but there would definitely be others, but those are probably a few that stand out.
Amazing. Excuse me. There's two parts to this question. With the good comes the bad.
Yeah.
So what would you say has been your biggest challenge to date, and what's been your kind of biggest success?
Look, I think with every role that I've taken, there's always been a challenge, right? At Hearst, it was the integration of the startup to the 100-year-old publishing, company. At Virgin, it was re-establishing a new business case, separate joint venture, building belief in the organisation. In Selfridges, it was winning hearts and minds that I kind of spoke to. And also creating this amazing omni-channel experience because the stores are so special. And at Unilever, it's a multinational company, making inroads in a company where people have grown up in the business, know each other. How do you build credibility to really drive a very transformational change? And right now, I'm balancing this kind of integrated role between, so I think there's always challenges. And I think resilience plays a really big part in that, and learning. I'm a lifelong learner. So I think all the experience I've had, all the choices I've made, and sometimes I've made some that crazy decisions. Like when I took the job at Virgin, I was commuting 4-hour round trip every day. And my family were like, why the hell are you doing that? But I really wanted to work there. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So, but sometimes you do things that maybe are a bit off the chart to some people, but you do it for your own professional piece. And I think the thing that I'm really proud of, look at Selfridges, it was growing the business, because it was just a really special time to grow from a kind of 30 million business to, over 300 million when I was there, and it's bigger now. And then in Unilever, leading my teams all around the world, of which there's about 600 through COVID. It was super, super tough because then we had also physical retail, which was, really big part of the Unilever's business, closed. So suddenly myself and my teams all around the world had the amazing spotlight, but also it was hugely pressurized for the teams because online became the place where we were really trying to over-index the business. And we grew by 44%. We grew the business to 6 billion euros in turnover. So it was a huge turning point in the adoption of the business really taking digital commerce seriously. And I think the other thing that I would probably touch on is that we've just done a big operating model change at Unilever. We've brought in new roles. So we've brought in these new teams called the Digital Marketing, Media and Commerce Hubs, where we bring 3 teams together because we see the convergence and opportunity. And so lots to be proud of, but lots learned along the way.
Well, something I took from that, how different today's, I'm going to sound old here, how different it is. When you mentioned you was doing a 2-hour round trip I can't imagine anyone starting out their career wanting to do that now.
I know how times have changed, right?
That's crazy, right? Like
Yeah, it's crazy.
You have to go out and put yourself out like that to make it work or to get that step up. People are just not willing to do that anymore. So that definitely made me feel really old, because I had to travel. My first role in recruitment was about an hour and a half each way, because it was the only way I could get into it. But next one is the hot topic right now. And I know something that you guys are doing absolutely incredibly well, and something you're going to be talking about at our amazing event, Retail on the Thames. I had to throw that in there. I feel like a DJ doing this sometimes. Social commerce.
Yep.
It's huge right now. I think it's the big thing. Everyone's talking about Web 3.0 and stuff like that. I think social commerce is the big thing. What's your stance on it?
Look, I think when I look at what's happening in the world, there's a clear kind of, if you're based in the UK or Western societies, social commerce means something completely different to what it does in like China and Southeast Asia, frankly. So I think because most people maybe think about social commerce as I'm on Instagram, I have a call to action and I click, or maybe there's some form of integrated basket function, which doesn't take me out of my world. So I think firstly, Terry, there's the definition. What does social commerce mean? And I think, certainly, for me, I define it as leveraging social networks and community platforms to promote and sell products and services. But it's underpinned by authenticity, trust, and social connection, right? And I think there's many different models within it. So shoppable social media, as I've kind of just talked about, but there's live streaming. So if you were in China, it is completely part of your everyday shopping journey, where you've got a key opinion leader selling to you and you shop right from that platform. But then there's group buying. It's in particular of, in Shanghai, I've got a team based there. When they were in, severe lockdown, community buying was a key source for getting food. So I think you've got to be sharp on the definition. You've got to know the different models. You've also got to see the size of the prize, right? We can see that globally, social commerce, in terms of CAGR, will probably grow by 26% by 2025. And it will go 3 times faster than all other digital commerce channels and also physical retail. So I'm really clear that it's going to be a model that is here to stay, but it will probably follow different formats and be different by your kind of sub-channels. So it could be your shoppable media, or it could be your live streaming. And I think that's a maturity, that's an adoption by consumers, etc. I think once you're defining your model, I think you then need to understand your market readiness. Is the consumer ready? Are the macro factors right? Do you have the right creator ecosystem? Do you have the right influencers? Do you have the right investment? TikTok, everyone is going mad on TikTok, right? You need to be sharp on categories. Not every category is going to be right as well. I work in beauty, so it is an area where is very well adapted, but we've got cleaning products, right? So Clean Talk is one of the most fast trending TikTok trends that's going on at the moment. And then you need to be really clear. The last thing I would say is around your capabilities. Doing this, feeding the engine, you need content on fire pretty much every minute. So you need to really think about your ecosystem and how you get sales and marketing working together, because that's a really key component. And sorry, there is one more thing. Think about the P&L. I think for social commerce, you can soon enter into an unprofitable model if you do not get the dynamics, because it's like a direct-to-consumer or marketplace model, really. So you need to think about that. So go in with your eyes wide open, but break it down into readiness, your definition of the model, really where do you kind of focus your how to win type of things, and the capabilities and investment levels that you need as a business. But it's super exciting. So yeah, I'm very lucky. I get to steal the best out of China and take it to the rest of the world.
Honestly, it sounds exciting. I know that much. Everyone's talking about it, but I think it's, again, we've got you speaking at our event, and I can't wait to hear a little bit more. Couple more questions. Obviously, we're asking guests to kind of give some questions to the next guest, because I think it's quite good to kind of do that. You're my first. So I had to kind of pick one for you. As it's become a bit of a hobby for me now, I'm a massive quote fan.
Yeah.
I like these kind of short, to the point, inspirational quotes. What quote kind of stands out for you? What is one of your most kind of go-tos?
I really like this one. If you change your mindset, you have the ability to change your whole world. And it's by a guy called Damien Thomas. Only you can make the change you want to lead for. You have to own it. It's your life and you've only got one life. So I think your frame of mind plays a huge role in how you approach it.
Wow.
Yeah, so that would be mine.
Amazing. Love that one. What would your question be for next week's guest? So while you're thinking, we'll give a bit of an introduction to who this guest is going to be. So I'm buzzing for this because it was an introduction through someone I hold incredibly highly, and mentioned this person purely based on what they're trying to do within the industry about diversity and inclusion, inspiring women. We've never spoken before, but thankfully networks pulled together and it's pulled off. So next week we'll be speaking with Noah Perry-Reifer, who is the Chief People Officer of On. So On are the brands of the moment, I think, at the minute. They're doing some crazy things. I know there's the new stores opening. I believe it was in Oxford Street, wasn't it? There was a new flagship store that went up.
Yeah.
So it's an amazing brand. What would your question be for Noah?
Well, Noah, I'm really intrigued. So people, which hopefully comes out in this, is a big area of passion for me. So I would really love to ask her, what does she see as the future of work? And how does that best help females in particular, Terry, because that's what we're talking about.
Yes.
In her vision of the future of work. So I'm really intrigued by this space, particularly when you've had companies call out in COVID, you can work from anywhere in the world, and now everyone's kind of migrating back to the office, and so I'm intrigued to know what she thinks on that one.
Amazing. I'm looking forward to that answer myself, to be honest. That answer could make or break my business. So I need this answer to be bang on. Final one that, honestly, Claire, I've absolutely loved this episode. This has been one of them moments I won't forget in my career. Like, genuinely, the kind of the career you've had, where you come across, it literally pours out of you. And I think the listeners will get it because I'm feeling it. I'm like, right, this is someone that I would have loved to have had in my corner. So
thank you, Terry.
Going back then, the final question for me to end this amazing episode. If you could go back to the beginning, what advice would you give yourself or someone else that's just starting their career in this incredible industry?
Career is a marathon, not a sprint. Enjoy the ride. Take every risk and learning experience you can. It will shape you to be the best version of yourself. Those would be the two things.
Honestly, Claire, this has been an absolute joy.
Oh, well, thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much. So that's the end of our first episode, everyone. We hope you enjoyed it, and tune in next week where we will be speaking with Noah Perry-Reifer, the Chief People Officer of On. Cannot wait to speak to her. Claire, again, thank you so much.
Thank you.